Hey everybody, welcome back to the PHP series. In episode 1, we made your computer speak PHP and wrote your first PHP script. Pretty cool, right? Now in episode 2, we're diving deeper. We'll explore variables, data types, and constants, the real magic behind your code. These are like the containers or labels or fixed values in your code's toolbox. You'll use them all the time. And here's what you will learn today. You will learn how to store and update values, what kinds of data PHP can handle, how to log values in place with constants, and how PHP handles and sometimes guesses data types. So let's jump right into it. First of all, what are variables? Variables are like labeled boxes that you use to store stuff. Names, ages, prices, addresses, you name it. In PHP, every variable starts with a dollar sign. And let's see an example. First of all, I'll open the previous PHP folder that we made inside htdocs, inside the XAMPP folder, that is index.php. This is our code from our previous episode, and now I'll remove this to write some new code. But first of all, before doing that, always remember to run your Apache server through XAMPP. If not doing that, we cannot open our URL which contains our local host. So Apache will start the Apache server, and after it has started, we will write our PHP code. So, like I said before, in PHP, every variable starts with a dollar sign. So, first of all, dollar sign, then name equals, let's say, Steve. Our semicolon, you should not forget semicolons, and then let's say age equals 20. So, name stores the string Steve and age stores the number 20. Now you can change what's inside the variable anytime, just like reloading or refilling a box. And some naming tips: variable names can contain letters, numbers, and underscores. They can't start with a number though. No spaces or special characters, and they are case sensitive. That is, $age and then $ capital AGE are different. So let's say this is 30. Now these are two separate variables since they are case sensitive. Now that we know how to store values, let's talk about what types of values we can store. PHP supports several data types, but here are 4 that you'll use all the time. So let me just remove all of this and list out all the data types. So first is string, which is just a group of letters stored inside double quotes or single quotes. So hello world. This is a string. Another data type is an integer. So integer $year equals 2025. Another is a float. Comments is this. Another is a float, which is just a decimal value or a floating point number. So let's say pi is equal to 3.14. And finally a boolean. So boolean, let's say is logged in equals true. So like I mentioned before, these are the 4 data types that you'll be working with the most. Strings are just texts, integers are whole numbers, floats have decimal points, and booleans are either true or false. PHP is loosely typed, which means it figures out the type for you. You don't need to declare it like in some other languages like Java. So there are also other types like nulls, arrays, and objects, and we'll get to those later. So first, let's talk about how to build dynamic text using variables, that is, using the value of variables in our text. Let me remove this and again start with our name variable. So name equals a string, that is Steve. So if you want to use this variable dynamically, we can do that in 2 ways. First is concatenation. That is typing out echo. Remember, this is used to print out things onto our web page. So hello comma space, and then in PHP the concatenation operator is just a dot. So to concatenate our name variable, we'll type out $name, then dot once again, and let's put an exclamation mark. This. And another way is by using interpolation or string interpolation. So we'll type out echo, but inside this we should write double quotes, hello, and directly our name variables. So name. See how this is lit up in blue, meaning that this is the variable value. Now let's save this code and open up our browser and open up our localhost php basics index.php. So we can see that both output to hello Steve. Now just so that they are in a different line, let's add a br tag, which we discussed in our previous video. So if we reload, this will be in the other line. So we can see that both concatenation and string interpolation give out the same output. That is, they use the value of the variable dynamically. Concatenation uses the dot operator to join text, whereas interpolation lets you plug variable values directly inside double quoted strings. But here's the gist. Interpolation does not work with single quotes. So let's try this with single quotes. So single quote, and we'll remove this, and then single quote once again. Now already you might have noticed that this $name is not blue, which means that this is not the variable value. Now if we save this code and reload, we'll see that literally $name is printed out onto our web page. So hence you should use double quotes if we want to use the variable value dynamically. So hello Steve. Alright, now what if you want to store a value that should never change, like your app's name or a tax rate? That's where constants come in. And the cleanest way to create one in PHP is by using the const keyword, which is similar to JavaScript. So const, let's say site name equals code planet, let's say. Now if we type out echo site name, let's see what it outputs to. So it outputs to code planet. You don't use $sign when accessing a constant, and if you try to change it later, PHP will throw an error. Okay, now that we know what constants are in PHP and how to define them, here's something that PHP does that's both helpful and sneaky. It tries to guess the type of the variable when performing operations, and this is called type juggling. So first, let's define two variables, one called number, which will actually be a string, 10, and then another variable called result, which will equal to our number variable plus 5. So our number variable is a string, but 5 is an integer. So let's see what echo result will output to. So if we save and go to our web browser and refresh, you can see that it outputs to 15, which means it is treating 10, which is in fact a string, as a number. So even though number variable is a string, PHP sees 10 and treats it like a number when doing math. But we have to be careful since this can backfire. Now if we type out 10 cats inside this, and let's say we add 10 or 120, let's say, okay, save it and then refresh, we can see that it gives a warning that a non-numeric value encountered in line 6, but it still outputs the result to 130, which means that it is still adding the string and number values. So PHP just reads the number at the start and ignores the rest, which might cause bugs in real apps. So you have to avoid that. If you don't want PHP to make guesses, you can cast variables into a specific type yourself. And we can do this like this. So we'll define a new variable called price, and we'll set its value to a string value of 99.99. So in fact, this should be a floating point. But if we type out price equals a bracket, then float and $price, we'll see that this has been converted into a floating point value. And we can confirm this by using something called the get type. So echo get type, and we can check the type of the variable price. So let's add br tag so that it's cleaner when we observe the results. So br, and then let me close the okay, and then after we have manually typecasted our price variable, let's use that once again. So get type, and then in our bracket or parentheses it's price. So let's save this and head on to our browser to see. So it's string, that is our first data type, that is price, it's string, but it says after we have typecasted to float, it says double. Now something about PHP: float, double and real all mean the same thing, floating point numbers. The get type returns double due to PHP's internal naming, but it's still just a float. So I just wanted to show you guys that we have successfully typecasted the variable, and now it is a floating point value, so it is returning double. Now other casts include int for integer, and then float. Okay, we have discussed float, so I'll not type out float, so string, and then for Boolean values we just type out bool. So these are the typecasting methods. So casting gives you more control, and it is very useful when dealing with form inputs or APIs. So let's put it all together in a simple example. No logic or conditionals yet, just variables, constants and strings. So we will create a variable called product name. So product name equals, let's say it's a wireless mouse. So wireless mouse, a semicolon, and then another variable which will note down its price. So let's say it's $14.99.99, and then our currency, let's say it's rupees, semicolon. So we'll create a constant called store name, which will equal to, let's say, Logitech. So Logitech, and now we will cast price from string to a float. So to do that, just like we discussed just before, we'll use float and then price. So after this, we'll just type out echo, and we'll print this out onto our web page. Welcome to dot, you know what, instead of the dot operator, I'll just use, no, okay, let's just use dot operator since we don't have a dollar sign for the constant. So store name, and then an exclamation mark. Then we'll print out a new line, and then we'll print out today's special. And since we're gonna use double quotes, we can just type out product name for $ currency space $ price only. Now let's observe the results. Save, and then so welcome to Logitech. Today's special wireless mouse for rupees 14.99.99 only. So this uses variables with different data types, a constant, typecasting, and concatenation and interpolation. And that was it for today's video. Nice work today. You've learned the building blocks of PHP memory, that is variables and data types. So coming up in episode 3, we'll dive into operators and conditional statements. If you liked the video or found it helpful, please drop a like and subscribe to our channel for more such videos. And until next time, keep coding and keep growing. Bye bye.